February board meeting to order. Let's please stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone, thank you. All right, so the first item is to approve the agenda. I am going to, before the approval, after the last item that's listed on there, director training and conference report out, I'm just going to put it, is there anything else that we need to talk about? Just generalize it from that perspective. So with that minor change, I need a motion for approval. So moved. Second. Move first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed the same? Aye. All right. Thanks, Suzanne. All right, Brad, safety minute and cool moment.
All right, so we're going to do a cool moment first. We got two individuals here, Colin and Paul. So interesting enough, these guys actually came on similar timing. And so part of our culture has been, engaging, right? So that's the first part of our culture statement, and it's something that we're investing in. And part of engaging means you got to give folks the opportunity to do things and want to do things, to be engaged in their place of work. And so we've taken, last year we did this, and again this year IEC runs what they call Project Indiana. So we go to Guatemala. The co-ops provide the materials. I think Paul kind of said it best, that it really is up to the guys. The co-op's not necessarily obligated to do that, although to pay them. But to me, that's part of what we want. We want to incentivize these guys to go, but these guys do it at their own heart. I mean, Paul and Colin both. I can't picture two more guys that are more servant. They just are. Everything they do is servant. So I wasn't too surprised when they both came up to their manager and then ultimately me and said, hey, I'd like to do the Project Indiana. And it kind of worked out really well because Paul had never gone before. Colin has gone before. And normally when they pick these, they have a committee that picks. And so IEC was short on the guys that had gone, I think, or it might have been the other way around. And so they called me and said, hey, would you be opposed to sending both your guys? And I'm like, no, I think that would be, we wouldn't have put their names in the hat if we didn't want them both gone. I said, no, I think that'd be a blessing because being Paul's first time, Colin's there and, vice versa. So anyway, I appreciate these guys and what they do. And I think it's just a testament to, the service mindset that these guys have. And so Steve had asked me last year, Colin was going to come in and then we had a storm that night. Yep. So he couldn't come in, if you remember. So they're here just to tell their story, answer your guys' questions. I'm going to hand it over to you guys if you want to kind of just explain what your thoughts were of the trip and just kind of your takeaways from the trip. Paul, you want to go first?
The people down there was the part that really got me the most. I didn't do line work down there while I was there. Colin did. He was on one of the crews that did more of the line work itself. But I was right there with the people. I was wiring houses. I went from putting meters on to breaker boxes, and from the breaker boxes running 2 circuits into these houses, huts, shacks. But the people, they don't have a whole lot, but you would never know it. They've got life figured out. They're some of the happiest people I've been around. And I was right there in everything they had, wiring all these houses up, and just happy that we were there, happy we're there to help. I spent a lot of time because every day I get like new helpers to help our crew, the wiring crew. And I would try to teach them because I was like, I'm leaving in a couple of weeks. you guys need to know how to wire outlet up, wire a light fixture up, and just how to troubleshoot some things and stuff like that. And so I made a lot of good friends while I was there, even though there was a language barrier, but we had translators with us, some of them that I worked with enough. They would learn to understand a few basic words just like I did with them. But it was overall a life-changing experience, very humbling for myself. And just seeing them people as humble and happy as they are with as little as they have, just none of us have any room to complain about life.
Great.
But that was, one of the best experiences I've had in my life was this trip.
Excellent. That's cool.
Colin, you got to do the line work, and I've always thought that was I've seen other pictures and other people, and then you put Colin up there and it's like, that just shows, how's the terrain, Colin, compared to here?
It looks like they filmed Jurassic Park there, really. That's what it looks like. It's beautiful. And there's coffee everywhere. But yeah, I was on the line crew. That's where I wanted to be. Thankfully, I got to go. I don't know. It's just good to work with other guys. I don't get to leave here much, and so you'll pick up on little things. So that's just a plus. And then just seeing what they don't have is, they're way happier than me. Just like he said, they're going home to a dirt floor.
Are these people like mostly farmers? Are they raising coffee beans then? Is that what?
About all of them pick coffee all day.
And it's growing on like some really
Not much
Flea
flat.
Mountain, what you see in the background behind him, that's all coffee. There isn't a tree on that mountain bigger than that. Wow. Because once they get that big, they cut them down for firewood. So there's a handful of trees probably on the whole mountain that are like really big.
So mostly what you guys are doing in this project is residential stuff. Are they getting any kind of industrial like deal like for the coffee? Like
They have a coffee co-op and that everybody sells their coffee to. And what these guys have to do is, guys and girls, because it's everyone from kids, once they turn 13 or 14, they're pretty much working, picking and doing all that stuff. They'll pick all these beans, and a coffee bean is just like a cherry. So it's got a soft, and the pit on the inside of a cherry is the actual coffee bean that gets ground up and everybody drinks. But once that coffee cherry turns a certain color, then they pick them all. They get like that, almost a color of a cherry, like a purple or dark red. They pick them, and then they let them dry in the sun for 3 days. So everybody's rooftop, any place they can find a 2x4 area that's flat, they'll have a tarp out and beans, and they dry in the sun for 3 days. And after 3 days, they run them through like a little hand crank sheller hauler, takes the outside off. Then they wash them. They got some wash troughs, and they wash the beans. Then they dry them for 3 more days. Then they bag them up, and they're in 100-pound bags. And then they sell them for $12 US dollars for a 100-pound bag. And a good working individual they said about their best working individuals can maybe pick 12 bags a day. But then you still have a week process. But as long as they keep it going.
so is that year round? Like
No, it's seasonal. Yeah. But then they sell them that way, and then they turn around and throughout the rest of the year. And when them guys go through and pick beans on this mountain, you'd swear they had a weed eater and they cleaned it, and like you see nothing but the rocks and a little bit of dirt and the coffee bean plant. The coffee bean plant's like a tree or a bush. And they get the first 3 years, the beans are no good. And then from the 4th year to year 15, that coffee's good. Then after that, they cut the plant over and start again. So you'll see different sections on there, and then they burn it all down and let the ash help fertilize. And then throughout the year, that's another task. But they'll go through there, and when it's done, it looks like it's weed eated. And the only thing them guys have on is a machete. I mean, they're just whipping that machete around. It's crazy.
I'm guessing everything's manual. I mean, they don't have any heavy equipment.
Yeah. And when I say a hill, I'm literally talking a mountain like this. There's a lot of places on there where them guys, they'll have, like, it looks like they got a lasso around them. And all that is a rope so they can tie off to a tree and then be over the side of the mountain and pick that area. And then let that rope out some more and then pick some more.
Gee whiz.
That's bags off the neck.
Yeah.
It'll run down that hill.
On the huts or the houses or whatever you call it, how big are they? I mean, are they 400, a couple hundred square feet, 400 square feet?
I had some of them. Basically, it's like woodsheds around here are bigger. I mean, I've got pictures of some of them that I was in, lots of them. I sent a lot of pictures to Abby so she could share them with everyone. But it'd be literally like setting a fence post in four corners and what a board would span. So like an 8-foot board, that's about 8 by 8.
And you're putting 2 circuits in, you said?
Yep.
Is that just all outlets? I mean, is that just?
No,
for that?
one circuit, basically one breaker had an outlet circuit and they had 2 outlets. And then every place got 2 outlets, 3 lights, and then 2 switches. One switch was a double switch, one switch was a single switch. So they could possibly run every light individually if they wanted to, but they limited how much, what each person got. Instead of having like 3 boxes with 3 single switches, they limited to that because what we tried to do was, and we would suggest to them, okay, you want to light in this room here, and out in front of your house. So where do you want your double switch? So you can run that porch light from this. But they wanted some stuff in the craziest places, like they would want to switch right by their bed.
They did, yeah, right.
But that's what we were doing.
So what are they plugging into the outlets then? I mean, what?
Their phones and stuff. And some of these places, I wouldn't say a lot, but I would say a good 25 to 50%, somewhere in that neck of the woods. They had electricity to where they were either robbing it from their neighbor, not robbing it, but splitting the meter bill, basically splitting the bill. So who's actually using the more electric? So the co-op was basically trying to get everybody individually on their own meter. And then there was a lot of places that had 2 or 3 deep cell cycle batteries, like boat marine batteries, and a solar panel, and then an inverter. And they would keep them batteries charged and then run that inverter with a single outlet so they could, have a couple lights in the evening.
So, and I don't know if this is a question for them, but so when these guys leave and they've wired these houses or huts, do they now have an electric bill each month that they have to pay that they didn't before these guys got there?
Yeah, they're all.
Unless they were sharing somebody's load.
To get their meter, it cost them to basically sign up to get electricity, cost them $150 US. And not everyone had that money. So like that individual right there in the picture with me, instead of him paying the whole $150, he chose to work. So the 2 weeks that we're there working, he has to be there X amount of days to work off his bill. So a lot of them they'll work 5 days and then they'll have 2 days off. And they don't all work like a Monday through Friday because they're picking beans 7 days a week.
So they're staggered.
So they're all staggered as to who's doing. So then they would stagger that's why every day I was trying to reteach. I'm teaching 2 different guys every day. And then finally they'll cycle back through and I'll get a couple more, or I get a couple that could speak broken English, and I would try to recruit them to stay. But
How many of these huts do you think you guys wired down there?
they said we did 190 something.
How many other linemen were down there with you guys? I mean, a crew of how big?
16 other linemen, I think.
18 of us total, 18 linemen.
One last question, then I'll shut up. What was your typical day? I'd be curious to know, once you got there and settled in, what was your typical day? Describe your typical work day for me. I'd be curious to know what that is.
We'd wake up. We'd go eat breakfast at a restaurant. That's what, because the food's not safe, you know. So this restaurant was safe to eat at. We'd eat breakfast. And then we'd go up the mountain. The mountain was what, 40 minutes?
Probably to drive up it, and it was
Tiny, rough road.
switchback after switchback after switchback, rough as a call. But we had to get up early every day because our normal schedule was eat at 6:30 and come down and eat at 6:30. Well, 2 days in, they decided, because they're having this big thing at the end, this big celebration after we turn, they brought some big wigs in from the country. So they were fixing all the road up. And for them to fix the road up, they were dynamiting the mountain. So we would have to the road would close at 7. So we had to,
You had to be on the side you needed.
we had to eat at 6. So we was at the restaurant at 6 and up the mountain by 6:30 every day. So because the road was closing, because they dynamite the mountain, and then they would use that rock and fix the road. So just imagine blast rock is a really nice section of road, because it was. Because other sections of road that weren't blasted rock. And you can imagine what blasted rock's like.
Oh, yeah.
And the stone court pre-crushed. Yeah. Wow. And the Toyotas took a beating,
So then you did your thing all day for what, 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts?
pretty much 12-hour shift. Because then we'd come down and we'd eat at 7. We'd come off the mountain, we'd leave off the mountain around 6:30.
Called it a day and then got up and did it all over again
Come
next
all the
time?
way back down to that restaurant, yeah. Because like he said, for it to be a safe restaurant, they had to cook with purified bottled water. So like if they made the rice, they had to use that. They had to cook all their food with clean water. Otherwise our bodies would not do well.
You wouldn't be going up the mountain that day.
Yeah.
So how far from a substation was you to take the electricity? I mean, how many miles?
I have no clue because the power was coming from Mexico.
Oh,
There was a metering point close to, it was actually, you helped move it, didn't you?
No, not this.
Not this time.
No. Last time we worked where the feed came in out of Mexico, it probably wasn't very far.
It seemed
Right.
far.
If you was a crow or an airplane or a glider, you could get really far really fast. And that same little trip that would take you 5 minutes to just fly right across there took you an hour.
Well, because you're,
Yeah, it was just, and you had to go all the way around this mountain to get all the way around on the other
oh,
side.
how many houses did you say you did?
I would
Not
say
you, but
us in general, the
Yeah.
whole group.
Yeah.
It was 193
okay.
or 6, somewhere in there.
And that's what we learned last week when we were at IC.
What'd you tell me?
It was supposed to be 109.
And they went up to almost 200.
So Colin, when you were setting poles then all day long?
The
What were you
poles
doing?
are actually set.
Okay.
So the Guatemalans will set them. A couple guys will go down and stake the job. And then,
Because they have one lineman at this co-op, a couple apprentices. And they'll stake it out and they'll have the anchors down, the poles set. We'll go from there. So
So then you're pulling all the wire?
we'll have them pull the wire out.
and machete stuff down. Gosh. But like here, we get a pre-drilled pole. There's no holes in them.
But no heavy equipment to do any of this, right?
No.
It's all manual.
I mean, they'll put the transformer in the back of the truck by hand. About 10 of them.
Yeah, all they had was a single cab, 1980 something Toyota pickup. That was their line truck. They had 2 of them, a red one and a green one.
To pull the wire.
No, the pulled wire was the people.
Just pull.
Yeah.
Tuggle.
They didn't
Tuggle.
want you, they didn't want us in their coffee fields.
Really?
Their bean plants to them, like I said, it's 15 years of growing. That's their bread and butter. And if you damage them them little bushes, that's a big deal to them. I mean, that was one of the first things they told me when I'm going down the mountain trying to find these little huts and homes, you know, because every one of them was, you can imagine the mapping over there, you know, and being a totally new place that you're not used to, trying to find someone that can't even speak the language that I speak's house. But every day was an adventure.
Thank you both.
Adapt and overcome. That was incredible.
What's the weather like this time of year down?
Amazing. Night times 65.
80 during the day.
Much humidity, no
Low
humidity.
humidity. Very low humidity.
Get sunburned pretty bad down there.
Yeah, because the humidity was so low that you didn't feel it until it was too
late.
Yeah.
No bugs?
At this time of year, there wasn't. Not bad. Not like they said in the past. They said you get down there in June or July, because they have a rainy season and it rains for like 3 months. It just starts raining and it doesn't stop for like 3 months.
I think they get 300 inches of rain in June. 3,000 inches. 300,000 inches a year.
Wow.
It's a lot of water.
That's why the coffee beans are growing on those hillsides.
And where we was, that area where we was in Guatemala, all those beans, they've got a 5-year contract that Co-op does, has a 5-year contract. All them go to Starbucks.
Wow.
So that's the quality of bean that they're selling where we was at.
Was told to ask you about Billy.
Billy. Yeah, Billy was a kid. He was a little 10-year-old boy. He worked with us every day.
Did he?
He started on the first day and he was amazing. So we requested, like, set him in this house. And you found out real fast that the younger guys that you got that were out of school were the ones you really wanted, because just like when I was in school, I had Spanish class and none of that sticks with me anymore now that I've been out of school for 20 years. Well, they have English over there as their like mandatory. You need to take some. And so you could kind of figure some things out with them. But Billy, you'd be putting in an outlet box or screwing something to the wall or whatever, and you dropped a screw and that boy would be on it before it hit the ground. I mean, and that was the first day, and we're like, you need to stay with us. And so he did. He stayed with us the whole time. And then towards the end of the trip, we took care of him. We hooked him up. We got him a backpack for school supplies for next year. We gave him a bunch of tools that we had. People that brought personal tools. I gave him some of my personal tools. Everybody, the ones on our little crew, we all hooked him up with a bunch of stuff. And some of the other guys all pitched in too.
So are the huts or houses, are they typical construction like you would see here, 2x4s, or what are they?
No.
What are they made of?
Solid lumber, block. The nicer ones are blocking and like cement. And they always leave more sticking out everywhere, like for future expansion. Always. That's just how they do it. And I guess they don't worry about it rusting, going back down into the concrete. But everything down there, I think I would describe it, so I've told people, it's like having a 12-year-old in charge and just whatever they could dream up and draw up on a paper. Like our hotel.
That Billy?
That's Billy. Yeah. He was awesome help. But anything that you could dream up, like our hotel, the parking lot was about 2 levels down and behind it. And the street entrance to get down there was as wide as a Toyota pickup. It was only that wide. And as soon as you got to the bottom, you had to take a hard 90. And basically, when they come up out of that parking lot, you'd have to almost clip the mirror on the corner of the building. So the front end didn't hit the wall on the other side. And then it was just like a straight shot up to the main street. And it was like a kid drew it out, and then you go, how are you gonna make it from the parking lot to the street? And they just go, oh, let's connect the dots. There you go, there's your road.
It's a Hot Wheels track.
I mean, that was exactly how like everything was.
Then there's a giant 30-foot hole right next to it.
Yeah, 30-foot hole deep. The steps in the hotel, there was no, I mean, the hotel was nice. I mean, it was nice for what you were used to being in, but if you brought it over here, I mean, there was like no code. You'd have a 4-inch rise, and then the next one would be a 14-inch rise, and then it'd be a 6-inch rise. And then the treads were the same way. The treads, you'd have a 14-inch tread. Next step would be an 8-inch tread. It was just anything goes. It was wild. That part of a lot of it was pretty wild. But then you had some people that you could tell that really took pride in their houses and homes. Some of the nicer houses and homes. They were nice.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
It says a lot about your character for going.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for helping support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go, because if it wasn't for everyone's support, we wouldn't be able to do it. So.
Well, I'm guessing it changes, you said it changes your life, but I'm guessing it changes, everybody that's involved is life changing. It's life altering. One of those defining moments in your life, you go, wow, that's a pretty cool experience. It's awesome. Well done. Well done.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
See you guys.
See ya.
That sounds like a great trip, you know. All right, next, or did you have anything else on that?
Yes. I do have the safety minute. Just ladder safety's been a big push. Actually, there's been a tick up in not just our industry, but like there's some safety tips. It's actually like ladder safety month too.
I think it is in March.
March, March, yep. So anyways, be safe when you're doing a ladder.
And I think one of the facts we heard at ISU was that there's about 500,000 injuries a year, just with the ladder.
That ladder safety Christmas lights are exempt from that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they count injuries at that time.
All right, so the next item then is for your information.
I think most of you probably seen or gone through this, but anybody have any questions for Brett on anything that appears there?
Read on the American Express, there was an IT equipment purchase for second page, top of the second page. I don't necessarily care about what the equipment was, but will that be capitalized? Would that be
First page you
capitalized?
said?
That's the second page.
Second page, I'll make it there.
So, second line down on the second page.
Yeah, because that meets the threshold.
Okay. I didn't,
Typically, anything over 5, we would.
I didn't know what that exactly was.
So it's computers.
Okay.
One of our main thing is we're trying to, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Windows 10 is going away. They will no longer support it. So as we are converting over to Windows 11, we put quite a few computers in this year. Actually, mine's new because they're on their life cycle. So while we're doing the update, we're going ahead and just replacing the computers. So that's the majority of what all that is. It's all budgeted though. Good question.
Check register, the survey and balance, is that just a down payment?
What page is it?
3.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a down payment.
Okay, that's what-
So what you had to do is we had to end up, if you put down a down payment and sign up, it was like a $300 credit if you sign up early. So yeah, that's just the down payment. That is not the full amount by any means.
Yeah, that's what.
Although it's not far off from the work that they do for us. It's more than half.
Under the safety report, so talked about CPR, AED. Do we have AED devices?
Absolutely. So every truck, it's OSHA required. So we have every bucket. So the idea is every crew has one.
Okay.
And so every crew runs with a bucket and a digger. So the buckets have an AED in it. So that's 2 there. And then we have one in the back building, and then we have one in the break room here. Those are all managed. I don't know if you guys know anything about AEDs, but they can be a real pain in the neck because there's the contacts are only good for so long, batteries are only good for so long, and you got to test them every so often. So we actually went with Plymate this last year, actually saved some money, and we know we're going to be compliant.
Right.
And so I think there's 5 total in-house. I think there's 1 in the back, 2 in the digger, and then 4.
Okay.
Those things are actually, if you haven't seen the new AEDs, I probably ought to invite you sometime to one of our things. They're slick. I mean, anybody can figure out how to run it. It goes through a process and it tells you exactly what to do.
What the next step is.
It's measuring vitals. They're slick. These new ones now are just, and they're not cheap, but you get one use out of it and you've made your money.
It's worth every minute of that. Any other questions for Brett from your information? All right, we'll go to the next item, which is to approve the previous meeting minutes from our regular January board meeting on the 22nd and our special board meeting that we had on January the 31st.
You like separate motions or?
I think we can do them the same unless there's anybody see any changes that need to approve both. Approve both. Okay.
I'll make a motion
First.
to approve both.
Okay. Suzanne, you seconded it then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose the same.
You okay, Suzanne, with that?
Yes, I'm sorry, I thought I made the second motion.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Thank you. All right.
So next item, CEO update.
All right, so the first thing I wanted to go through was the company projects. So you guys have a list there. It's under B. I would like to get approval on those projects. They are in list of priority. So the reason that's kind of important to me is we set the priorities and we set the projects. These really, in my opinion, are my goals for the year. And these filter down to my things. So you're going to see things on there that I'm going to give to Crystal, for instance. Here's her due date. Here's her deliverables. Here's how we measure that. Those will be put into her or any of my managers' performance evaluation. And then she will delegate some of those things so that it starts at the top and it moves its way all the way down through our performance. But these are the projects that we are committing to. And as you see, some of them we've backed up, tweaked a little bit. And then of the advice you guys gave me last month, which I think is really, really good advice, we didn't add on some of those other things that we were thinking about. I mean, if you think about our technology plan being the RF meters and then the fiber project, that's a bunch there. So some of this other stuff is things that you have to do, right? They're just execution. They're things that we tactically have to do every year. And anyway, I'd be more than welcome to answer any questions on those, but I would like to get approval from the board on that.
So the cost of service study work that's going to be done, you have on here that the first draft is going to be completed by the end of June.
Yep.
So we're on track for that still. In conjunction with that, he'll need a 10-year financial forecast, which is already completed then.
So we did a 10-year financial forecast, Matt did for fiber, and it's got all the fiber business in it. We had to do that to get our loan. He's got to scrub all that fiber stuff out of there so that we can, and then fine tune it a little bit. We're trying to get into a 10-year forecast where we can update it annually and really make decisions based upon the 10-year forecast. The problem is CFC's 10-year forecast that we've always used it's not really necessarily is user friendly to be able to update it that much. And it's built on key trend analysis that we want to set. So it doesn't match your guys' financial strategy, right? From our financial plan. And so he's having to rework it a little bit from the one we used from fiber in order to be able to.
One big one all in. You got to pull the fiber out.
And make it more user friendly so that we can use it. What I'd like to see is you guys give us a financial management plan like you did, right? We follow those and we're able to give you, here's what the rates, here's what things look like 5-10 years from now, based on that financial forecast. And we keep it up to date.
So we will see this 10-year forecast before it's handed over to the rate consultant.
Absolutely.
So are we gonna have a meeting with the rate consultant before the June meeting then?
I would say we'll have a couple.
Because it's already,
Yeah.
next month is March.
Yep. Possibly. I don't know what his timing looks like and exactly what he's going to want to definitely come in and go over, what variables you want him to look at, he'll have a high level list of questions for you. And then, he'll want to do some training again. Right. And so we could probably do all those in one meeting. But to answer your question directly, we haven't scheduled that with him yet. So I don't know.
But I mean, then for this 10-year forecast, then that'll be a meeting, then that'll get approved, and then we're pushing it.
I don't know that we'll need a 10-year forecast actually approved. It's more kind of we've already done the one we needed for our loan. This is just more for honestly, for the cost of service study, he's only going to look 3 years out. They don't look at a 10-year. So we need to know what the next 3 years look like. My point is we have that data today, 3 years out. What he needs in order to do the cost of service study, we already have today. So there should be no problem looking at that.
But on this, the final product would be delivered at the June meeting.
That's the plan.
That's pretty quick.
It is. It's the commitments. Now, so Jason, let me back up. That's the cost of service study as that's not the
Initial
plans.
report.
That's the initial,
Yeah.
There's going to be iterations that we do.
That's true. It's not going to be the final.
It's not gonna be the.
It's going to be a rough draft of in fact, probably what'll happen is we'll probably review the 10-year forecast. He'll probably ask you for the variable type stuff that you want to see. He'll do the training, and then he'll probably present, here's kind of what it looks like in that June that we're talking about. And then he'll have to go back, make some modifications. When I say make modifications, it's more or less pro formas, right? So things that we know are known and measurable in the future, you're going to want to pro form that stuff power cost, all those types of things.
So you think that the presentation and kind of the training and would all be the same?
I think so. That would be my goal. I think we'll have a board meeting dedicated to probably 2 hours of cost of service study stuff.
Because Dale brought up a good point. I mean, we know that we're gonna have at least one new director.
I would suggest that new director we send on their own to go do the cost of service study training by himself or sit with me and do it
Ahead of time.
day one.
Yeah, but that, I mean,
It's gonna be,
it's June.
It's the middle of it.
Yeah, it'll be right on top of it.
What's the end of meetings, 13, 14, whatever that.
right, so it'll be about a week,
Yeah,
days after.
days.
Yeah, I always thought it's kind of tough but how else do you do it?
Postpone it.
I mean, we can't postpone the cost of service.
I mean, a month.
Oh,
We could. I mean, we can drive to this and if we make those decisions there, and then
I mean, the goal is to have this all tidied up and the decision made so they
By the
can
end
be
of the year.
implemented in April, right?
I would like to have it done by the end of the year so that we have January, February, March.
yeah.
Because it's going to be April usage.
Yeah, effective date.
I mean, we have to have it done 30 days in advance of April 1st. I just, the reason I want this done earlier than later is because you guys know how it is. These are complicated. There's a lot of questions. There's going to be, I'd rather not have a bunch of special meetings. I'd rather just do this in our board meetings. So, I mean, you're talking about, we sit in here, we discuss what we see, we agree upon pro formas. He has a month to go back, do his work, right? We kind of land on, literally, this is what it's going to look like. And then we give him, okay, go do rates, right? He comes back, we go through the rates. Probably you're going to want to do some tweaking. Part of this too is the whole general service, which I think we have a plan there, which is we're really not going to change it. We're just going to we will create a single phase general and a single phase residential. They'll be the exact same rate, but we're going to start getting people into those. We'll look at what would it look like? What would it look like if we did separate it? But I think this first go around, my recommendation is going to be you leave the rates the same and we start getting people put where they're supposed to be. And then we worry about it in the next cost of service study. Unless it comes back and there's like, no, we need to do something now. We'll start talking about that stuff as we go. I mean, he's working on it now. He's got a lot of data from us. Meter data and stuff like that. We're starting to get to it. Good question. Yeah, we have plenty of time. I mean, my latest date would say the end of the year, we're ready to go. But our drop dead is going to be 30 days prior to April 1.
Anyone have any additional questions for Brad regarding the company projects before we have a motion to approve?
I think what he's gonna have, he has the building update in that, and you're gonna talk about the building update. I'd rather talk about the building update before we approve
Yeah, we can do
all of this.
this building. I'm trying to, what number is that?
14.
So the deliverable here is to get you guys, here's what we recommend and here's the cost along with it by September. But I guess what I am gonna update you on today could change that. So that's probably a good point. Let's wait until you want me to go through the building now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right, so after working with, so, we started this building thing and taking a look at this a couple of years ago. One thing I think the big bogey was out there was, well, what's this going to look like? What if, we do fiber and we do the entire territory? Does that look a lot different? Does it not? The committee didn't really, they kind of thought about that, but not really. I didn't feel like we were kind of at the point where it was like, okay, we know what the variables are and we've done our due diligence to know what this building needs to really look like, right? So we kind of put a halt on it. And we did that, I think, for really good, for those same reasons. So we've got the committee back together. We have a brand new operation manager who has different ideas. right? And so we've re-engaged that. And what the committee and our operation believes our recommendation is going to look like, just so I'm trying to update you guys on what we think we're going to deliver as a recommendation to you.
Okay.
So one is that we think this should be a 3-phase process. So we think phase 1 possibly could start this year. And that is going to include the fence. So we have a fence out there. We know we're going to have to use the back lot because we've kind of ran out of room, right? I would argue today on the electric side, we have run out of room. So we have a lot in the back. We've already talked to the farmer, and the farmer is completely fine with next year even not planting there. It's the way he describes it is it's more of a hassle to actually. He said, you'd be doing me a favor. So what we would like to do in phase 1 is go ahead and get the fence moved. We're hoping we can reuse a lot of the stuff that we have there, but we know we're going to have to add on because there's an extra, 4 or 5 acres back there. So move the fence, do the surveying work. You're going to have to do surveying work, so we might as well go ahead and get that done. Front parking lot. So today, the way it works is our members' parking lot is on the left side, and we've had near misses in the past, and we've had member complaints. It's gone through our safety committee. We put it on our risk assessment. One of the ideas was, hey, if we ever do a project for the building, we really need to take care of the safety issue. So the idea was that we build the parking lot right in front, so there's not this cross traffic, because you have trucks and stuff coming back and forth through here all the time. And we're like, if we're going to do the building, we need to go ahead and put some extra blacktop out here and build parking that's right in front of the building so people don't have to cross traffic. Again, that was just one idea. So fence, surveying, front parking lot. We say re-asphalting. We want to be able to use this back to get back there. And today it's too thin because it's too thin to have our trucks over it. So we were talking about maybe laying some asphalt over top of that. Removing the dirt in the back. Obviously you're gonna have to take the topsoil off and drain it and stuff like that. And then graveling back there. So that's kind of phase 1. So our thought is that's the stuff that we could do actually that we're going to do we want to do as a part of the overall project, something we can get going on this year. And again, we're costing all this out, and we'll bring you a better recommendation of is it something we want to go forward with or not, right?
And the time frame for phase 1 then is, you said starting sometime this year or completing it by the
we think it would be completed by the end of the year. But again, we don't even have cost on all
I got it. So
like the re-asphalting, that might drop off. We got a cost.
Sure. So you're proposing to fence the entire perimeter of the property, the entire property?
Out back, yes.
Well, I mean, it would essentially be the rest of the property that RMC owns here.
Right. Just not in front though.
To the creek, whatever, because we went all the way.
To the,
Yeah.
We wouldn't hit the woods. It actually stops about 15, 20 feet in front. It gets real wet back there. So. Yeah, just the field part. I'm going to show you a map here.
Okay, all right.
So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is to build this concrete pad so that we can put a building on it, a 150 by 350 building. That is where we would put indoor storage for all of our transformers today sit on gravel. It's something that we get hit on every single year. There's really no containment. And you do degrade the life of these things by them sitting outside. So we would, and it's not just the transformers, it's all of our equipment would get put into that building, would go way out back. The next thing is all the electrical, the plumbing, shelving, all the stuff that you would need to do in that back building. So, and it's going to make more sense when I pass this around here in a minute. And then phase 3. So again, this is somewhat similar to what we talked about and the committee talked about first. We want to put a big building out back by the substation on a concrete pad, nothing fancy really. It's more like, it's not going to be insulated and all that. It's basically dry storage like the Morton building is today. It's just going to be bigger. We're going to put transformers in it. There's going to be equipment in there, wire, stuff that we need indoor storage for, but it'll have bathrooms and stuff. So it will have some kind of like heating and stuff, but it's mainly going to be dry storage. So that's year 2. So we were thinking that would be more like a 2026 project. And then phase 3 is where we would take the existing building, knock it down and replace that. And it's going to go from where it sits today. We're going to butt it up against the building. So it's basically connected. There's no hallway, right? And then it's going to go all the way back until you hit the cell. So that the Morton building that's out there now has to go because we're going to go directly that way. And we believe, as we're looking at it today, that this will accommodate both scenarios. And what the committee has told me is they don't believe there's a big difference between, yeah, you're going to have some extra office spaces and yeah, you're going to have a few extra parking spaces. But wouldn't you want that anyway if you're doing this building, if you ended up not doing full fiber? So the difference between doing full fiber and not full fiber, they're saying you'd build the same building essentially after they're looking at it with manning and trucks and everything. So what I'm going to show you is the white one. And the way it's going to be rough, right? This is our guys marking this up. This side over here is where it butts up against the existing building, and you can see the layout that they have and the trucks. The trucks would be drive-through, so you're kind of like, you have a big tall opening and you can drive all the way through it. So this is the building. The second one I'm going to send around is a plot, and it's rough. It's a plot of, it's the aerial right now and where that building would go. Like, and then where that new dry storage I was talking about, where that is, that's our sick mat. You may not want to come in here yet. I'm joking.
I only have bronchitis or pneumonia, so I'll be all right.
So I'm going to pass this around. This is just, again, it's rough drawing. And I'm not really looking for anything other than just an update. So to answer your question, Brian, we would have, right now we're suggesting we think we do 3 phases, and here's what the scope of those 3 phases is. What I'm saying is by September, we'll have cost ironed out and kind of a recommendation on, do we want to do 3 phases or not? What do those 3 phase scopes look like and all that information. So this is really just
set on the drive-through.
Say that
For
again.
the workers, for the big truck.
Like passing around.
I'm not going to be able to, what I'll do, I don't have any digital.
Okay.
Yeah, I could take a picture of it and send it to you, or Jason or somebody on the other side.
I
I'd
just sent you
appreciate-
one picture, Suzanne.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So anyway, I'm sorry, Carl.
You're pretty well set on a drive-through for the big guys, and then you just park the trucks inside and drive back around like that.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking. And the reason is because you can get, in the width of the building, you can get 2 trucks like, well, you'll see it once you get back to back. Yeah, so it's not necessarily, I mean, it is drive-through, yes, but if there's a truck in the front, you can't drive through, right? I mean, there's 2 on top of each other. So if you look at any of the new buildings, that's how they're doing them all, because you can get more trucks in a smaller area. It's more efficient.
But they'll still be using this drive. They won't be coming around and going through the new parking lot because that would defeat the
So the
purpose.
parking lot will be up front, and then
They'll
they'll
go out behind it.
go out behind.
Okay.
So this is more offices here, Brad, or this is an existing office?
No, these are all new offices. This right here is, the boardroom would be right here right now, the current boardroom.
Okay.
So when you walk through that hallway, there's, Chris's office is right here. Right here. These are all new offices. And again, this isn't finalized at all. This is just rough, what we're thinking.
I'm sure.
And then phase 3 probably completed whatever.
That is.
Or 7. Phase 3 would be 27. Yep. The nice thing I like about the phases is if there are some type of surprises or something that comes up with fiber, you can kind of.
I think it makes sense.
Maybe that goes where that black spot is. So is the white on the outside the fence then, right?
Yeah.
So why are we doing this? Why is this just not to the property line?
Because there's some facilities, there's underground circuits there that you can't build on top of.
And over here?
Over there, there is Geo.
But we have more stuff buried.
Yeah.
And then what are we're just not gonna worry about any of this back here, of course. They're trees.
It's all wetland, you said, probably too.
I'll be quite honest, once you get to right here, it gets really bad. This is just rough. I mean, really, really rough. You know, like right here too.
Does this mean that there's gonna be 5 parking spaces and 2 handicap?
Yep. I don't know if 5 actually makes sense. It's just, again.
Gotcha.
Typically from members coming in and paying their bill, you'll see on a busy day, 2 or 3 cars at the same time. Honestly, we're coming around that way anyway with the drive for the guys, so that's why we thought it, that's why we've been waiting to do the front. It doesn't make sense.
The drive-through will still stay where it's at.
Yep, absolutely. And again, we may get costing back and our plans today may completely change.
3 companies.
Yep.
I saw Johnny. The contact I gave you, is that one of them?
Yes. And we're looking at design to build ideas. I don't think he's met with all of them yet. I know he met with one of them today.
I just wanted to be sure. Because we got a new guy.
So anyways, this could completely change. Again, I don't really need any feedback right now just because it could look totally different next time we bring it to you. This is just first thought.
For the purpose of this company project list, you just want to know, is this okay if we pursue this, breaking this out in phases? Is that really all you?
Now, all I'm asking for the company project list is are the projects that are in there and the timelines. Typically what you would do is when you do my review at the end of the year, you would ask me how many of those we hit. Did we hit our targets? Did we do this? Did we do that? Those are really my goals. Those are my commitments to you as a board of the projects that we're doing this year. For the building one specifically, all that deliverable is by September, end of September, I'm going to hand you, here's what the costs look like, and here's what our recommendation of the building looks like.
We're not approving any kind of.
You're not,
Go
yeah.
ahead on.
Oh, God, no. So you're going to have to give me money at some point in time to go do the architect, but I don't have the numbers back yet. He's still meeting with all 3 vendors right now. Because remember, we took that out of the budget. I think there was 67 in the budget to do architectural work to get into the costing. So I'm going to have to come back and get that. So you're going to have to give me approval to do that work first.
Or just the architect.
For just the architect and to get accurate numbers. And I think, Dale, we're leaning towards a design to build max cost, no more than, so that we know exactly what we're, build contingencies in,
I just wanted to make sure they had followed up.
Well, that doesn't make much sense on exit when it's on the side of coming.
I guess that's our building.
This is gonna be gone.
No, that's a substation, yes.
That's a substation.
Substation and pool yard will.
Around, this is the building that you're.
These are where the trucks are at right now. So the truck will come out, go this way.
You drive through the building.
The drive-through building will be right here then.
Yeah,
And that's just a storage.
correct. This is just plain Jane, no insulation, just dry, basically dry storage. Yeah, we'll have a bathroom in it. I think
Right.
there's an office.
Like you said before, this is existing.
No, this will all be torn out.
Okay, so the existing is from
This is
here.
the building that's here today.
Right, but from, when you walk out back there, this is the other are now.
Yep.
Take that all the way out there and it's built on and be attached to this.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
breezeway, whatever.
Yep. So if you're a truck that's right here,
Mhm.
you're gonna come out and go that way. your truck that's right here, you could either, this truck in here, you're gonna already pay for out or back up that way.
Did we actually incur it?
And then there's a
At
wash.
one point in time.
Well, we got
Going to,
not like a
No, on the side.
rendering of it or anything. We got like.
so it's not gonna have any effect with the parking area.
So you're gonna have to come out the same spot.
Correct. The only reason is because there's a,
Yeah, I
there's a
understand that.
big gas line or something out there that we can't drive over.
A large.
I think you're losing a lot of, let's here, take this, put it back here and have it back in and then, so you, you know, that's just my, and then you're gonna have to think about this.
I believe that so we talked about that and there's something that's, it has to be where it's at because of the underground
You
facilities.
can't go the other way. But what, is this any of our property?
Yeah, that's all ours.
Because then you can make his parking lot,
You could, if we
you
wanted to.
know, instead of having, I'm just saying that the drive-through thing with the doors in the wintertime is not a good thing.
Pain in the ass.
They eventually will not work and you are losing heat out the ass when you open up doors.
Yep.
Really, I ain't kidding you. If you have half as many doors, I mean, it's gonna cost a lot to put them doors in. And if you could even move that back 10, 15 feet or 20 feet as close as you can to this line, then when they come out, they got more room to maneuver. And if those guys aren't very good backers, well,
That's fair. I
Somebody needs
I
to-
get what you're saying. I'll bring it up to the committee.
Yeah.
And this is,
then you can make
that's
this,
probably another, I think it's probably another 20 feet at least.
yeah, 20 feet's a hell of a car
Yeah.
or a truck.
Stuff.
Greg,
Yeah, there's the
confirm-
pipeline I know goes right there. And then we have our own.
Not a good idea.
Just put in 2 years ago.
Because it doesn't make any sense to have a driveway through and then come back and go up.
Should be on the committee.
It almost more sense, everybody just
Free time.
You're the most.
and having a parking lot if you want to do that. Or back here for the,
It's true.
Yeah. Well, you could just.
Brett.
yeah, leave what's there.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah.
Yes.
I'm really not hip on them guys driving circles and
Yep.
coming this way, going this way.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
And then you're talking about if someone is in this parking lot, they have to drive past out.
Yep, no, that's fair. I get it.
Brett, can you confirm?
Yeah.
Can you confirm who the committee is?
It is Aaron, Johnny, Matt, Jeff, Jenny B. And there's one other lineman that I can't think of that I don't
Are there
know.
any other are there any board members on the committee?
No, because it was Clay at one point in time.
Yeah.
We did talk about once we get a little closer, possibly may need that if you guys want. That's a good point, Suzanne.
Well, I think we should have that now. We were just talking about that.
What?
Board representation on the committee.
Yeah,
I
that's
have-
fine. I don't disagree.
Suzanne, were you gonna say something?
I just believe there should be a board member represented on the committee.
Okay.
Especially as we get closer. I mean, I think good timing for that would definitely be prior to us kind of like finalizing who we're going to go with and actually spending money. I agree. Plus, it'll make it go a lot smoother.
I think it needs to be for this phase.
Okay.
I mean, just like what Carl's talking about.
I'll discuss the complications afterwards.
So that was one concern I had too. Thanks for, I'm glad Suzanne brought that up. The other one I wanted to know, but I mean, you said you may have to come back, architect. We already did one drawing, right?
We've never spent any money on this.
So what was the print that we looked at?
That was their rough draft of.
That was their proposal.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we would rather do is get in all, what I don't want to do, I want to know what this thing's going to cost from the very beginning. And we do a bid to where it's a design bid so that there isn't all these scope creeps and then we end up
No
3
surprise.
times more than what it is.
But didn't we approve money for an architect?
We took it out of the budget last, which was fair. I mean, what we basically said was come to us and we'll give you the money.
Had we not approved it at one point in time and then took it out in the next year, maybe?
We took it out, we put it in, you guys had it in last year. We didn't spend it.
We didn't spend it, and then the next year we took it back out.
And then this year we put it in there, you guys took it out and said, we'll give it to you, just come back in for the fiber thing.
But none of the stuff that you're saying and doing this year was in the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm not asking for money. There is no approval to move forward with any of this stuff. The only thing that's in the project list is to bring you a proposal with the cost. In other words, I'm not asking for phase one approval right now, all I'm saying. I just wanted to give you an update because I didn't want to get close into this. And then, I mean, for things like you just said, we never thought about Clay was going. And we don't have representation. I think that's probably critical. All right.
So, options for fiber tech Manning plan, what does that mean?
How do we want, once we build the fiber project, how we have to do maintenance? So do we want to contract that out? Do we want to hire new heads? Do we want to train our guys to do it? Do we want to hire a guy to do it? There's a bunch of different options. So we've actually laid out all those options. We put pros and cons against those. Right now, we're working on what the costing looks like for the different ones because there's obviously going to be big cost difference between the ones. So by then, I want to deliver, here's what we think we're going to do. And again, your approvals on that are going to be more budgetary, right?
Can you speak to the meter pole replacement project and the percentages that are on there? And it says that it's on track.
Yeah, so we have 97 meter poles, I believe, was our goal for this year. Am I right? Does it say that?
It says 10% of 114.
Yes. Okay, so I was wrong. It's not 97, it's 114 this year. So we are making way more progress on those than, when I say way more progress, the problem with meter poles is you're at the mercy of the member, right? And so it takes constant communication back and forth, and it takes us sending a letter that basically says, you got to do something. And so if you guys remember, we put that whole process together where if we don't hear from the member, we're sending them a letter from legal, says, congratulations, you own a pole now, and we're putting our own pole and bolting it up to it. And they own that other pole until then. That was the whole process that we went through last year. And so I guess at 10% being January, when we typically don't do any of this type of work, in my opinion, is we're tracking above. Like, this is actually, if you want to, after this meeting, I'll go show you the whiteboard we have on this one. There, it's the little red tags. We're tracking that. I would say 10% is really, really good where we're at right now.
Are you still using the contractor?
No, absolutely not. We're
No,
doing that
no,
work.
I mean, yeah.
No, when we made those moves to the Manning, you guys gave us a person to fill in there, we don't feel like we need that. Plus, we still have a lot in the backlog that we're just waiting on members that we have to re-engage all those people again too. So I don't know of a better way of telling you, besides a percentage, we feel like we're 10% to get to the 114 at this point. And like I said, with it being January, December, you usually don't get a whole lot done right now. The ground conditions are terrible, or have been.
So
I don't know that I really
we had
answered.
114 done. How many of these do we have left? Do we know?
Oh, 30 years worth. So we're only replacing these as they get red tagged.
But I mean, how many do we, they've already been tested, right?
They're on a 9-year cycle. And some of those won't fail for 30 years. It's a 30-year ongoing forever project. It's one of those where I think we've dedicated money to it and it's an ongoing budget item that we need to resource and man, essentially.
It's not going to go away. I mean, it will.
This project will not be done while me or you are in this room. Unless you guys want to go spend buku bucks to go and change out poles that aren't really deemed bad. That's the problem you get into is we just stopped doing meter poles
10%.
a year ago, 2 years ago. So up to 2 years ago, we were putting poles in the ground that are going to last 30, 40 years.
That's what he meant, that there's only 10.
Yeah, you could go replace those, but why would you? That's a good question because I don't know that we've hit up on meter poles in a while though. But I feel like we're probably more on top of it this year than we have been in years past, just because we have the manning dedicated to it now. I mean, that's one of Jenny's main projects.
I'm caught up in the math. Is that,
So you saying that's 12 to this day or through January?
12 what?
Polls. Or,
Let's see what,
because the 10% of 114, I'm still confused on what that's really saying.
So the percentage will not match with how many's done because you have, let's say we have stuff in progress with probably 80% of the 114, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So a percentage isn't going to add to, if I say I'm 10% to get 114 polls done, it's, you get what I'm saying? It doesn't equate into, in other words, we've probably touched, my guess would be we've touched 100 of those 114 polls already. We've got something
in
going.
some fashion.
Correct. But as you're waiting on members, it'll never be like, you know, hey, we're 50%, we've got 50 polls done. I got it.
yeah, that makes sense.
That's why I'm saying it's really hard to track. I can't tell you the number of polls that are done and you're going to get a very good idea of where we're at. It's a piece of it, but. I think the meter project I think that's a monumental project that we agreed to do that's going to last forever. That's just, otherwise you're going to spend a lot of wasteful spending because you're going to be replacing poles that really don't need it. I actually got asked that question 2 weeks ago by our operation manager. Do you want to go ahead and get in front of the ones that don't fail? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to, but that's going to be wasteful. What else? Good questions.
Any other questions as you go over the list?
So, yeah, we need a motion to approve the 2025 company
Projects as
So moved.
first,
Second.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the
Aye.
same. Thanks, Suzanne.
Yes.
All right, Brad, you're still with the company metrics then.
I'm going to hit fiber up real quick. That's it.
That's fine, sure.
So a lot of good things going on in fiber. In fact, Sam gave me an update and it's extremely long. So I'm going to just try to hit up the highlights here. So last week we awarded a contractor. So we ended up having, I think, around 15 that submitted. And the way we submitted the RFPs was you could submit for mainline construction and mainline construction only. You could submit for material handling and warehousing, or you could submit for both, right? And so we had roughly 15 responses to the RFP that made up both options that I just told you. Where we landed was the top three. So we had kind of a scoring metrics with the committee and we landed on the top three. I'll be quite honest, out of the top three, I felt comfortable that all, because we did reference checks. We had quite a few calls on reference checks. We did interviews with the companies, the top three we did. I felt we almost got to the point where it was like, flip a coin. All three of these are really, really good, can do this job, right? The reason we went with a company called D&H Fiber. They're out of Arkansas, but they've done some work in Indiana, done some work in Ohio. And they've done a lot of work down south. The reasons we like D&H is number one, they actually did end up being the cheapest by about 190, I think, under what we had in our business case, which is good news. So that's material warehousing and mainline construction under what we had in our business case. And they were about 190 under the other competitors. That's not why we necessarily picked them, but that was a factor of it, right? The second thing is D&H, they basically say, look, we're not a materials company. So we partner with a materials company who is a company called Irby. So Irby is a very large company that manages the materials, purchases the materials, warehouses the materials. In fact, they actually submitted an RFP to do that work and that work only for us. So we like the fact that D&H prides themselves on construction experts we're going to partner with, and we have partnered with a lot of projects that we have someone else do all that work. So we like that. The other things we liked about D&H, they've done and I don't have the total miles, but it was thousands of miles of ADSS. In fact, out of the top 3, they were probably the number 1 when it comes to ADSS. We thought that was really, really important. There was quite a few, like number 5, 6, and 7, that they had done a little bit of ADSS, but not much. And then you get down below that. The other reason we like D&H is they hire their own employees to do this. So they send them through their schools and they send them through their safety programs. They don't go out and do a bunch of contracting, right? And so number 2 and 3, they sort of not admitted, but that's their strategy, right? They go out and find people in the local area and they hire those people to help do construction. We like the fact that this company really prides themselves. These are our employees. These aren't, contractors that we don't know, essentially. So we thought that was pretty awesome. So anyways, we ended up approximately 5% is what it ended up being under the budget for feasibility. And again, I thought you guys remember how long ago it was when we did feasibility? I mean, to end up with materials, warehousing, and mainline construction being 5% under, I thought that was excellent to start with. So we are make ready for DA1. Currently, there are no pole changeouts. There's just third-party attachment moves and guying moves. So that is another excellent piece of information. So out of this first phase, which is 500 or 1,400 passings, so it's hundreds of miles of fiber, there are 0 poles that we have to replace other than the red tack poles. And we're almost done with those already because we had to do them anyway, right? So other than the red tack poles, there are 0 poles that we need to replace because of pole loading or because of height. This is what we were hoping, and is why we went with ADSS, is because you could save a lot of money on the upfront cost. So it's paying off, right? The big things that we're going to have to do is the guiding. So when you put ADSS up, it's going to put weight on the poles, and you need more guide wires coming down, right? So so essentially you're going to have to put another guide down on some of these. And I can't remember the exact number. And then there are quite a few areas where we have other attaching fiber providers that are in our power space. And we would like them to get out of the power space. And so I'm not 100% convinced that we're going to get them to move quickly. And we do have a workaround for that because we can't go higher because we're in the power space. But from a safety standpoint, I think that's an issue when we know we have cable attachers that are too high up. So we are working on those. I finally got all the contacts. There's 3 different companies, roughly about 70 poles. So we are anticipating construction to start the first 2 weeks in April. That's really going to be dependent on delivery of materials, any type of warehousing concerns. So with this, Irby will own going and finding warehousing space and managing the material. They actually have their own software package that once we're done, they can dump into NISC so that we can take over material management and inventory, essentially. And they pride themselves on the fact that they can give us daily, weekly reports on inventory. And the reason that is so critical is so we don't end up with a ton of material at the end. They pride themselves on, we know what we need to use coming up in DA8, and we know what active inventory we have. And so we can make the calls on, do we need to purchase new material or do we have enough material? And I think from what we've heard from other builds, that is critical. I'm gonna move on to the BEAD application. So phase one, everything's going good. We've got a contractor. We're 5% under where we thought we'd be. Anticipating second week in April to start mainline builds. The next piece is really gonna be the RFPs for the secondaries. So we'll be doing, could be a different contractor, depends on who RFPs. Secondaries is where we actually, do the secondary drop and hook into the house. So BEAD application was submitted. I think you guys all got that. So we essentially did, there's 240 underserved, 2,689 underserved. So that's a total of 2,934. So that's just BEAD. It doesn't include phase one. That number's a few hundred more than what we expected. So some dropped off the map, some added on. If you guys remember, we spent money on doing an engineering study and we did a challenge on one of the current providers. We won a lot of those, so the number was actually higher. So right now, this is estimating to be about a $31.75 million project. To get to where the entire project, phase one and phase two, to be at that roughly 50% mark, which is what the board asked for, right? We approve this if it's at that 50% mark. And I'll tell you why, but we ended up with a grant request of 67%. So we're asking for 21 million and we'll match it 33%, which is 10 million for the BEAD application, the total application. We felt like that was competitive. And you ask why 67? It's because the scoring game, right? And you're in that fine line of, you don't want to ask for too much because you're uncompetitive, but you don't want to ask for too little, obviously. And you got to factor in how the scoring works on that. The other part of this is we committed to building to every single REMC member. So regardless if they are served today. So those do not have grants that are attached to them. So and you have to build through most of this anyway to get the main line built. And so that's about a $10 million ad, right? So that's why when you look at phase one, why it seems like it's way higher than what you guys signed up for. It's because that $10 million that we added into that project. So the reason we're at 67 is because if you add everything all up, magically we're going to be roughly at 52% funded. If everything works out and we get what we think we're going to get, which you guys said 50%. So we figure 52 gives us a little bit of room. So total cost of the project again being, that's minus that, so never mind. I do have some updated maps. I'll send those to you. And I do want to mention a couple things. One, there are no members left out. Every single member will be served. There are some Decatur County addresses that are going to be like tough calls. Like there are grant dollars for it, but we didn't put in for it because it's like 3 miles of build to pick up one house. We don't even know if that person wants it. So we decided not to put those builds. It inflates the cost of the project. And you're going to get very little for it. So there are a handful of those. Again, they're not our members. They're just in Decatur County. And so my thought is you get through the first part of this and then we go knock on the doors and say, hey, is this something you guys want to do? And then you guys can make the call. Does it make sense to make it? I mean, some of these investments were like, it's going to cost you $150,000 to pick up one house. And you get very little grant on it. So.
Where was the D&H out of?
Arkansas is where they're out of. That's their headquarters, but they've done a lot of work up in Fort Wayne. Is where they've been doing a lot of work right now. The other one where was the other one from? It was down around that way, wasn't it?
The other company that we looked at really hard was in Western Kentucky.
Yeah, Western. You're right.
They were both pretty close to each other.
I kind of, the way I told him was, I said, I think we could have made a decision to pick any of the top three and probably not gone wrong.
I think that's fair.
So we're moving. I honestly feel better about this. We've had a ton of phone calls for people wanting to know when. I actually got a letter sent to me yesterday. And of course, you know how that feels when you get a handwritten letter. You never know what it's going to be, right? And it was actually someone thanking us and wanted to make sure that his address, he called it a hole he lives in. So he has no cell phone coverage or very little, has no way of getting satellite. I mean, he literally has no way. And when we look on it, we're building, he's in our project. He was a funded address. So we're hearing a lot about that. I was actually at KFC's on Monday helping fried chicken, and I got pulled out 4 different times to that members had questions. And actually members in Lee Edition that are like, we are on XYZ today and we hate it. Build to us. And I'm like, yeah, but you're an unfunded address, so you're probably going to be like this. But they were still excited about it. Any other fiber questions?
Is there any fear of funding still being there with the current administration?
Everything right now says yes. Yeah, there is that risk that's out there. Obviously we're not going to build until we'll know that before they ever award the funds. We're not going to get into a situation where we're going to go build and then magically the money's not going to be there. I mean, otherwise I would suggest we hold off, right?
Yeah, but I mean, guys, I'm more asking, like, they haven't canceled it, obviously.
Yeah.
Altogether, they're still taking applications, but still moving forward.
Yep. So NRECA is keeping a close tabs on this, and the words we're getting from them, I mean, Matt and I kind of participated in a call. It was basically, no one really knows what's going on, other than it does align with the new administration's strategy or thoughts. I mean, they support stuff like this. So it'd be hard pressed that it's not like some of the other stuff that they're calling out. So it's a true need. Any other questions?
Things you can point to and say, we help pay for this are always positive.
Yeah, good point.
I think you're good.
All right. I'm going to go through January metrics fairly quick because Matt's going to be pretty quick too. I think the main thing to note from the metrics here is if you look at January and December, January is one of the coldest recorded months. And it was, what did we figure earlier? 26% colder than our 5-year average. We've had quite a few high bill complaints in December and January. And it's because, and usually what you hear somebody say is I don't understand why my bill is double what it was last January. It's because it was so much colder than it was last January. And so those are just, again, it's temperature related. You can see it in the HDDs. So if you look at the blue line on the very, very right, that's to 2025 for December. And that little dot is our 5-year average. So you're right about almost a 300-day difference just in the HDD alone. You look at the purchased energy, you can see there well over our 5-year average and quite a bit over last year's. Demand, I'd say demand was a little closer, but again, still above. Here's where we fell out to budget. So residential, I mean, residential has the most impact when the weather's like it is, right? When it's colder. So you see we're about 19.3% above budget. Commercial came 3.4%. Industrial's down, and it's interesting because we cut out a ton from the one, and they are still down from that, dropping this number down. And then some of the other ones were also down a little bit, but then our transmission picked it up on the 4.5. So you look at this and it was actually a really, really good month, and you'll see it in the financials.
They shut down a little bit though, didn't they? No, not at all.
So for January, we ended up at 5.76 above budget. I always like to point to gross margin because that's really what tells you, that's what funds everything, right? So our power costs were really, really high. Our revenues were really, really high. If you factor those into gross margin, which is the difference of power cost and revenue, we're within $2,000 of our budget. So I'm going to point this out again, this tells you our rate structure works. Not overcharging people when it's really, really cold and their KWH is really, really high, and vice versa. So I think this is something that we need to point out to our cost of service study guys, and we need to take into consideration when we do any rate changes. When it comes, and I'm not saying a rate increase, I'm saying like if we move energy and demand and things like that, like we need to stay consistent like we have done and make the moves we need to make. When it says we need to move from taking stuff from energy and putting it in demand, even though that's a tough sell, you got to do it because it's predictable, right? Which is key to us. Having unpredictable gross margins, we really get into cash flow problems. This is when you need to start padding stuff. It's a mess. So what this tells me, first month in January, I mean, we're coming out of the gates with, I think it was wasn't it within $2,000 our gross margin budget?
The power cost and the gross margin, or the revenue and gross and the power cost were within $2,000 difference when you figured it. In fact, it was over a bunch.
Yep.
They were both over, but when you added them, the difference, it was like $2,000.
This is really good budgeting and this is really good rates. That's what this.
It's better rates than budgeting.
True.
Our budget, we were off by more than.
Yeah.
True. You can't predict how cold it was going to be in January. I wasn't real happy about my electric bill in January either, but I understood.
Nobody was. All right, this is going it's been quiet, right, as far as outages. Lost consumer hours, we were way down. We just didn't have a lot in January. You can see the number of outages. We were close to the 5-year average, but as far as the length of those outages, I'm telling you, I still think, we haven't received a bunch of big ice storms and things like that, but you've had some events, and I do think that the right-of-way is a big piece of that.
I think you need to update your years.
Yeah, because
All your signs are off a year. You need to drop
Are they really?
20 off. That one's the same way.
there you go. There's now 24.
You don't have 24 on there. You got to drop 20.
Oh, interesting.
They're all like that.
Good call. I dropped 2024 is what I did.
Well, the blue is probably actually 24. You just need to drop off 2020 and put 21, 22.
Yep. Good point. Are they all like that?
Yeah.
Good point. I've had some other things come up that.
Yeah, that's just the first of the year thing.
Yeah, I had to rechange all my formulas and every single page.
That's the bad thing when you look at these dashboards, you have to go in and change all your formulas because it's a new year, so you're pointing to different data and that stuff happens. All right, Matt, balance sheet.
So one thing, I do have something else. Our extract has expired, so we are going to be going to this new interject, which I have up on my screen. So there are going to be some changes. We're in the process of building some different reports. If anybody has anything in particular they want to see, now is the time to get your request in.
And my input to him is if you want to see anything different than what you were used to seeing, because we're going to build these abstracts like they were prior. If there's something different that you want to see, because I had a hard time not having gross margin on there. I had a hard time not having the percentage, the differences in there. And
Well, on the operating statement, no variance.
yeah,
Just
what he's saying is if you want something different than what you were used to seeing prior, now's the time because they're
so
building.
you're going to revert back to that same format that we had.
If that's what you want, we'll get as close to it as we can. The biggest statement that's got a lot of changes is going to be the cash flow, because it's how we pulled that out of the extract. Interject doesn't do it the same way. So it will, if you want it exactly the same, it's going to take more work than the others is what I'm getting at. So what you saw on your iPads was exactly how it pulls out of the system. So that's why it looked a little different. And then I want to show you this to see. I want this to take the place of the key indicators, but I'll let you guys tell me if you are okay with that.
So we had to make this change. It's been on our list.
We've known this has been coming. I've told them. I'm sure you remember I said something 6 months ago that Microsoft was no longer going to support our product.
But you're gonna get the same information.
Yes.
It's gonna look a little
It
different.
might be looking just a fuzz different, but not a lot. So, in general, this month, you can see the notes I got there at the bottom. There's not really a ton from January to December. The biggest thing I would say is like it says here, our increase in cash in the AR Energy at the end of the month is higher. That was the big change on A, which is your total current accrued assets. B, the decrease is because we got the $500,000 of ARPA funds, and that's where we've been recording the fiber. So that's why that went down so much. C is an increase in AP of $250,000. And then D is there's an increase in our liability accruals and an increase in the AP is what that made up that. Any questions on the balance sheet? And this one didn't change because this is what I've been doing myself. That's why you didn't see any difference here. So if there's no questions, Brett, I'll have you go on to the next one.
Yep.
Here we have our operating revenue and our power costs. They're both over by about 170,000. That's where Brett said our gross margin was only off by $2,000. So we were over 5% across the board, but our gross margin was right in line, which is pretty good. So controllable expenses, in general, there was nothing that stuck out to me there that was just really totally off the wall. There's a lot of things that it's first month of the year. There's things get put in the budget in month one. You don't get till February. I looked at that as it's a timing issue more than anything else. There's no conclusions I can draw as of the end of January as to where all the variances are and if they're going to be permanent. So we're a little bit under budget there. But in general, it's a timing issue as much as anything. The only one that I know is going to be a permanent impact is we did receive, I believe it was $9,000 in late charges on a right-of-way. So our right-of-way will be under by $9,000 because we actually had negative right-of-way budget for January. We billed them more than we got billed. So I thought that was interesting. But other than that, I don't believe there's anything major that sticks out right off the bat. Any questions on the income statement? And then, as I said, the cash flow, this may require some tweaking because of what we pull out now isn't quite the same. This other cash received number may have like a $300 plug in it because I didn't know where else to go with it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I got it calculated to the penny. It's right, but there's a small amount there because of how we pulled it out of the system. We don't get that anymore. So, but in general, everything else, cash went up. We received $500,000 in cash for our ARPA money. That's probably the biggest difference there. Any questions on the cash flow? This will change, the cash flow will. That I promise you, somewhat. In general, plant, we got our pickup truck. You can see in the vehicles and trailers, pole replacements, they're moving right along. And everything else is kind of follows how it normally would. I would say there's nothing really stood out to me as odd there, other than the pole replacements were moving right along. Any questions on the plant? And then I want to show you all this. I'll walk around, and this is kind of what I want to take in place of the key indicators. It shows each individual, all the industrials individually, how they are compared to budget and everything else. I think that out. Well, I don't know how to do that exactly yet without losing the data out of it. I'll have to make it a PDF, but I think this could take the place of the key indicators and it'll give you actual dollars, numbers, instead of percentages. And I think that may be more useful to you. It'd be this here, the top part there is, it shows every category broken out in detail. It shows every individual category. So you'll be able to see the one industrial that's struggling.
So this is not got any kind of, this is a breakdown indicated like we had before.
And I could possibly add that to it if you'd like it to do that. That could be something I believe we can build these things to however we want them to go. It's just going to take several hours for each one. So that's why I ask if there's anything you would like me to build in. I'd like to do it on the front end, not sure. So if you would like me to add KWH to this, I think I can probably do that. It'll just be another column off to the side.
Is that what you're recommending, Jason?
No, I mean, that was always well, you and I talked about this long, kind of key indicator page. No, it's not nothing. This is nothing I'm going to die on the hill over.
Okay.
I'll see if I can do it.
Well, I'm just asking a question. I'm not.
That I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with that either. I think I can probably do that. I just have to.
It was kind of like good, quick reference sometime.
I don't think that'll be super difficult.
But I don't know, maybe at the end of the day, it's not really that super valuable, but.
If you know what you're looking at.
If you know what you want, I can try to build it. I mean, the worst I can do is come back and say, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
If that's
I thought this
something
would be a perfect opportunity to just go with that.
Yeah, I figured. We get my surprise face.
But I thought this would get you close to what you was looking at there in the past, but it spits out right with
It's dollars.
It's dollars, yeah. But I can see if we can add the KWH to it. That's not a bad idea. I'm not opposed to that. I'll just have to see if I can figure out how to do that.
So what we'll do, what our plan is they're going to start working on these for next month. You guys are going to get a new rendition of it, and we'll just tweak them over the next couple months to see what you guys want to see.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to get you whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you want it on there, I'll do everything I can, or I'll give you a different spreadsheet that's got it. I mean, that's kind of
whatever
you tell me what you want. That's kind of. But I guess, and if anybody wants to come look at what this all can spit out to begin with, I'm happy to show anybody if they want to come in and see. But if there's something that, I mean, there's a lot of stock reports that the system will spit out that if you want them, I got no problem pulling that out. I mean, if you want to come by, anybody wants to come by.
My substation?
Now you're getting.
I just didn't.
Now you're getting difficult.
Thanks, Matt. I think we're good. Is there any other things?
I'm trying not to breathe on anybody.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah, okay, that's good too.
Excellent.
Email it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. One other thing while we're on financials that I just wanted to bring up real quick. There is some movement on the fairgrounds. They are asking for a READY grant. I think it's READY. They asked us to put together, they want to go underground on the majority of it, and then higher capacity. And if you guys know, they're turfing the fields out here, right? The whole idea of turfing the fields is they've already got actually 15 scheduled tournaments.
Oh, yeah, baseball tournaments, is that right?
And so that brings a lot of people with campers. So they're planning on right now, they want to expand the camping. So this is good. This is load increase, right? They're wanting to expand the camping hookups over that way. So good news, bad news is good news, it's going to be more load. Bad news is they're going to get some revenue credits, and there are safety issues, violations, and very, very old equipment out there. And so this could be a big burden on our cost structure. It is something we brought up during the budget. And we have not started talking to the commissioners about like who pays what percentage yet. We gave them the total cost and what we were thinking from a design standpoint. And they may get it all in grants. I don't know. We haven't got to the point yet where we know what's going to cost us. But I can tell you from looking at the facilities and we follow the policy that we have, we're going to have it's going to be a good chunk of change out there.
Did you have some follow-up with someone about funding some of that work? neighboring co-op that is involved.
Yeah, how'd you know that?
He called me that.
Yeah, his number's out. That's not gonna work. Did he give you a number?
I just told him we had already talked about it, you know, and we were gonna be involved, but
I ran into him twice.
thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I ran into him twice and we talked over it and I said, yeah, there's gonna be some dollars that we're gonna have to invest because it's on us, because it's aged facilities and there's a lot of safety stuff out there that's not good, it's been on our list of things that we need to get done. There's gonna be some new load out there, right? So that's gonna give them some revenue credit. So you add all this stuff up, there is gonna be an investment that we're gonna have to make that's gonna be pretty good size. I don't think it's as big a number as what he was thinking, but we'll see. I don't know. We haven't got there yet. But it is a financial burden that I think will come to fruition at some point. So however, we need to start planning for that. I think once we get the numbers, we can start. I just wanted to give you an update that it is on horizon. Unlike Park Road, it seems like it's moving, so.
All right. Let's go to new business.
All right.
And I think what we'll try to do, since we're going to be going into executive session at 7:30, we'll get through this and we're going to try to get through anything else.
The only thing, I'll be quite honest, all this stuff can wait. I'd like to go over the rules and we need to go over the DG too. So let's just do it real quick and then. You want me to hit the DG up first?
That's fine.
So let's do the DG first. So back in 2014, the co-op looked at doing a single phase solar, essentially time of use rate. So this was based on numbers from 2014 when it comes to cost avoidance, when it comes to just the numbers that go into how you make a rate. If you guys remember, it was not in our scope. No one was on it. No one has ever been on this rate. It's not even built in our system. Like we can't even bill for it right now. We'd have to spend some money to actually get that built in. In 2018, it was never in our scope. The problem is we didn't really rescind it. It just sat out there. So the formats all got updated in 18. I think what happened is at the time they updated the formats. And if you look out on the website, it says it was approved in 2018. I can tell you, I went back and looked at everything. It wasn't even part of the scope. So essentially what happened is it never got rescinded back in 2014. So this is a live tariff that if you were to honor today would create huge subsidies because it's not up to date with current cost structures. And so our recommendation is we kill it. We've never had anybody on it. I don't know that anyone really would necessarily want to be on a updated time of use rate for solar, but if it's something we want to bring into the scope of this next cost of service study, we could. The only reason I bring this up is we have had one person that has a desire to move to this one, because if you look at the numbers, there's no doubt. You would make a ton of money off of it. I think it's paying like 22 cents an hour or something, or 22 cents a kW in certain hours. So that's kind of where we're at. I think my recommendation is you rescind it, the original 2014. Does that make sense?
It does.
And then the other good news is this is all, so this was prior to us having the software that does rev control, and this couldn't happen today in our software today. It would come up for a rev during our cost of service study. And
So this is kind of like a reverse,
it's basically just
not consumption, it's what they're putting back on.
Correct.
Okay.
So we need a motion to rescind
The this PTO how many is distributed in generation?
So moved.
We have a first. Second. We have a first and a second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. I think we're good.
I will call the individual. We've already had conversations with him. He's fine. I mean, you guys know him, so. Okay, let's hit this real quick. I don't necessarily need this approved unless you're all on board. I want to approve it. It's something that, so as we've been doing, we've got new employees and we're trying to be crisp on things that aren't spelled out in black and white, right? We're trying to get as black and white as we possibly can on some of this stuff. So the first thing is when it comes to service upgrades, it's really not even anything that's necessarily in our rules and regs. It just, the past practice has always been that we pay for upgrades because the assumption is you've increased your load over amount of time. Therefore, there are revenue credits and therefore we don't charge for those. That's how it's always worked, right? Where it gets a little uncertain is, and if you read other co-ops, they basically say it's the determination of the engineer to determine like what credits you give on a service upgrade, because it's so case by case. It just depends, right? It's like, what did they create by upping their load and what is above and beyond that they pay for. And so the best way we thought about doing it, and this is in alignment with IURC, this is in alignment with how other municipals do it, is you give them a credit. And so it would be just like the line extension, you give them a 2.5 times annual revenue credit. You'll either use the past 12 months or a similar load, and then anything above and beyond that, they would be responsible for. Now, what I would tell you is that 99% of the time, this is going to cover every service. It's really not going to impact that many people. Where it will impact somebody is if they have a service upgrade. So let's say they're building a barn. They're going to do the work to get the barn electricity from the house, but because of that, they have to go from a 200 amp to 400 amp, right? So that's a service upgrade does. So we got to go out, possibly put in new service wire, possibly put up a bigger transformer. And in the meantime, they have 3 spans of overhead primary that they want underground. In this scenario, we wouldn't pay for 100% of that probably, right? What we would do is give them a credit and they would owe some money because they want that to go underground. So it's trying to black and white something so that it's a little bit more clear on, and we don't just leave it up to the engineer and to figure out what we charge or what we don't charge. That's what we're trying to get out of doing and making it crisp. So that's our recommendation. And both of these options I did take to John Wolfram, and I do have an email if you want to see it, but he said the way you're doing it is a common practice. There's many different ways you can do it. But both of these 2 opportunities he would fully support, and they've been done at a lot of other places. So that's opportunity 1. Opportunity 2 is the way, so if you guys remember, for age facility credits, anything over a certain amount, you get, I think it's over 45 years, you get 50% credit of the project. And anything less than 30, you get none. Anything between 31 and 44, you get what we basically say materials at average cost of the system. We just came up with that because we thought it kind of made sense, right? And so that is very difficult to explain to people. That is, or we think it will be. There hasn't been any of these. We think it's going to be very difficult to explain. It's very difficult to run the numbers, and the numbers are always changing. So what it has you do is when we build in our system, in our mapping system, a new design, it's going to spit out a bomb and it's going to tell you what the costs are, right? Based upon our current cost. What this is telling you to do is go look at the individual components by average cost in the system. So let's just say a 35-foot pole, it's going to take, whenever our system started capturing costs for 35-foot pole till today, and it's going to average that all together. Whereas our system currently, when we build that, it just tells you what the average cost is within the last 12 months, right? So it's very confusing. It's hard to explain. And what we feel like we came up with this 25%, which is easy, 50% if you're over this, 25% if you're in this range. We feel like it's going to be very, very close to if you did this other calculation that, in my opinion, is hard to justify and explain to people. So we haven't had any of these, and I don't know that you're going to have a ton of these, but eventually it will come up. It's something, again, we're trying to get crisp on. It's an easier way of doing it. It's an easier way to explain to members. So again, these are both our recommendations. Both of these I passed through John Wolf from,
And he was fine with them.
he fully supports, and I have an email with that to that too. So anyway, up for your consideration. There's no real hurry. I mean, it's just it's an improvement on a system that we think needs clarity. I'm perfectly fine with waiting.
Yeah, if you know, toy with a motion today, or we can wait till March and look at this a little bit closer. You guys good with that? March. Okay.
If you do have any questions, concerns, or anything with it, I'm more than happy to entertain variations of this.
Okay.
We went round and round on this. Was kind of what the team's thought was, but I'd like to come in the next board meeting with, if you have input, please give it to me so we can work on those solutions.
Sure. So as of now, we'll put it back on the board meeting for.
Absolutely, that's fine.
for March.
Yep.
Okay. And so I think at this time, we'll go ahead and close the open session.
Yeah, Steve, I think that I would like to, if I could have the floor before we go to executive.
Okay, we do
session
have a couple minutes.
I would like to bring something to the board's attention in light of the recent events of the last month.
Okay.
And I would like to make a motion for the board to consider before we go into executive session.
Okay.
That motion would be to rescind our prior action designating the March 7th, 2023 report of an independent attorney engaged by this board to investigate a June 28th, 2022 complaint of sitting DCRMC director as confidential, and to also authorize the report to be disclosed as and when directed by the board. So the complaint that was filed and the subsequent investigation that we authorized would no longer be classified.
Proprietary. Okay. And you'd mentioned, what was that last sentence you said earlier? That we have to authorize it each time?
It could be in the board's discretion how it would be used, but,
Okay.
or you could say, yeah, it's not classified anymore and it's for public consumption if needed. The information in that report handles a lot of the alleged things that we were sent in that correspondence.
Okay.
Jason, I'm not arguing with that, but is that something legal should advise us we are allowed to do or not? I'm just asking.
Yeah, actually,
I wanted to be able to discuss it with them when we are in executive session. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I wasn't arguing the fact. I was just curious to see if that was something, I don't know how legally that would be.
I would say the main thing is, and I haven't seen the report, but you would not want to disclose the name of, I believe, in that kind of what the rules were. You don't want to disclose the name of the person that submitted it.
We don't know. It's a whistleblower. We don't know.
we don't know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As long as it doesn't say that, I
Doesn't.
think it's.
We don't know. The anonymity of the complainants, or I don't know if that's the right word, is still.
It would remain.
That's still intact. Yeah.
It's just that the fact that it occurred and we investigated the results of the investigation would become available to be used at the board's discretion, should the board so deem it appropriate.
So Jason made a motion.
I'll second.
It would still be a classified document. We're just releasing it when we choose to. Correct.
It depends.
You worded it.
You could do it either way. The way I proposed it, we would choose how it's used.
Okay, good. That's what, yeah.
So as of right now, the one that you said on the kid 22 would be undeclassified.
It could be, we can do it either way. We can totally declassify it so that it can be released. Or the way I proposed it was that we could choose how and when it's used. If the attorney says, hey, we're ready to use that, then we would tell the attorney, yes, go ahead.
Do we not already have that authority?
Well, we have to make a motion to do it.
So for instance,
Oh, really?
with the communicator, you could do it with your corporate counsel, but you can't give that to a third party, a communicator, or I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I've never seen
I
it.
thought you were talking about just giving it to the lawyer.
Well, that's a possibility, right?
I
We can't do
assumed
that.
we
We
already
can't
had
do
the
that, right?
authority to hand it over to whoever we wanted to. We can't do that right now. Okay.
Not technically, no.
Because you made it, there was a motion made to have it
Okay.
classified or confidential.
Yeah, maybe that's not the right word. I mean, we could do it however, but the way I presented the motion was that we would have some say over how that document is used.
Good. Okay. So we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Okay, that passes. So at this time, we will be coming out of open session and going directly into executive session momentarily. And get a motion to adjourn. So I'll take a motion to adjourn to do that.
So moved.
Second. Got a first and second, so we are adjourned out of open session.
Hey,